You know how sometimes a sentence just feels flat? You want to make it more descriptive, more precise, more, well, powerful. Today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to unlock how to turn those basic statements into really vivid descriptions by mastering adverbs and adverbials.
Okay, so let's start with something super simple. Tarun speaks. I mean, it's a sentence, it's correct, but it leaves us with a ton of questions, right? How does he speak? Is he happy? Angry? It really doesn't tell us much at all.
But now, check this out. We add just one word, thoughtfully, and the entire picture changes. Instantly, you get a much clearer idea of Tarun and how he's communicating. And that, right there, is the power we're going to unpack today.
So here's the game plan. We'll start with the absolute basics, what an adverb even is. Then, we'll look at all the different types, figure out where to put them, and then we'll really level up our skills, moving from single words to some pretty powerful phrases and clauses. Okay, let's dive right into part one and get a solid handle on our main topic here. What exactly is an adverb? At its heart, an adverb is basically a modifier. Just think of it as a word that adds extra detail. It helps answer questions about the action or the description in a sentence, giving everything a lot more color and context.
And they're just incredibly versatile. An adverb can modify a verb, like when Tarun speaks thoughtfully. But it can also modify an adjective, maybe the trees are quite old, and it can even modify another adverb, like if you're making a point very forcefully. This flexibility is what makes them so essential.
So now that we know what an adverb is, let's open up the toolkit, so to speak, and check out all the different kinds we have at our disposal.
Now this is where it gets really useful. See how this table breaks it all down by the question it answers? If you need to say when something happened, you grab an adverb of time, like late. If you need to say how it happened, you use an adverb of manner, like readily. It makes it so much easier to pick the right tool for the job.
Okay, knowing the different types is one thing, but the next super important step is knowing where to actually put them in a sentence. Placement is key for clarity.
Think of these as kind of like the general rules of the road. For example, you usually put adverbs of manner after the verb, so you'd say, he speaks softly. And adverbs of frequency, words like often or never, they usually slide in right between the subject and the main verb. Like in, he never skips his morning walks. Following these guidelines just makes your sentences sound natural.
And what if you want to use more than one? Good question. Well, it turns out there's a standard order that just sounds right. Manner, place, frequency, time, and purpose. So that example, she spoke confidently at the press conference yesterday, it just flows perfectly because it follows that natural order.
But sometimes rules are meant to be broken, right? For a little extra drama, you can take adverbs like rarely, hardly, or never and stick them right at the beginning of the sentence. It creates a much more emphatic, kind of formal tone. Just remember to flip the subject and verb like you see here. It's a really powerful stylistic choice.
All right, we've pretty much nailed single-word adverbs. But what happens when one word just isn't quite enough? Well, to get even more precise, we can expand from a single word to a whole group of words. And that's where adverbial phrases come into play. So let's go back to a simple example. Neha spoke eloquently. One word, gets the job done, tells us how she spoke. Nice and efficient.
But we can expand on that. An adverbial phrase is really just a group of words that works together to do the exact same job as a single adverb. It's just a way to add a bit more texture and detail.
And here it is. See? In an eloquent manner means the same thing as eloquently, but it gives the sentence a slightly different rhythm, a different feel. This is how you start to develop your own unique voice, choosing between a single punchy word and a more descriptive phrase. And yeah, just like the single words, these phrases can cover all the bases. When, where, how, why. You could say someone works out often. Or you could get way more specific and say they work out 5 days a week. These phrases give you a whole other level of detail.
Okay, you ready? It's time to level up one more time. We've gone from single words to phrases. Now we're going to look at using entire clauses that act like adverbs. This is really the ultimate tool for adding rich, specific detail.
So what is this thing? Basically, it's a whole mini-sentence with its own subject and verb, but it can't stand on its own. It needs the main clause to make sense. And you'll usually spot them because they start with a linking word like because, when, if, or although.
And this comparison right here shows you the difference so clearly.
Early is fine, it tells us when, but look at the clause, after we had finished our breakfast. That gives us so much more specific information. It paints a whole picture of what happened and when.
And this is where you can get really sophisticated. These clauses let you show complex relationships between ideas. You can explain the reason something happened, you can set a condition, introduce a contrast, or make a comparison. This is really the key to building smart, nuanced sentences.
So, when you think about it, we've gone on a whole journey here. We started with a simple word like thoughtfully, moved to a phrase like in a nonchalant manner, and went all the way to a full clause like although he is not well off. Each level just gives you more power and more precision.
And really, that's the whole point of this explainer. You now have this complete toolkit, from the most basic adverb to the most complex clause. So the real question is, how are you going to use these tools to make your own speaking and writing more vivid, more precise, and ultimately a whole lot more powerful?